You want to take that, T, or you want me to do it?
I'll give my best stab at it, and we'll see if you want to add anything on. Um, from the outset of Obsidian, everything that we have worked to achieve has always been the basis of being a resource for high quality teams and their projects within the crypto space. So everything related to Obsidian, all of the specific branches of what we do is specifically centered around being a resource for high quality teams and their projects. That would be my answer to you.
Gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we were to just back up to where Obsidian started, the reason it started, the reason we founded anything was because we were a small group of friends and investors that knew each other and said like, "Hey, we're tired of getting scammed. Uh, there's some amazing things that happen in DeFi, but one of the costs of those things, when you look at deregulation, when you look at a fresh, brand new space, is that there is just an abundance of scams. We were tired of that, and we said, what can we do to improve like the overall quality of the space, and what can we do to prevent scams from happening? That's where the Obsidian Council, which was the first step, was formed. Was we said we want to surround ourselves with awesome people. And that was the base of the Obsidian Council. Let's find all of the coolest people and put them in one room and see what we can create. That was the basis for Verified by Obsidian. The KYC was, hey, we're personally tired of getting rugged. So what can we do to not get rugged in the future? Let's just start verifying these guys. Like if someone else isn't going to do it, then we'll do it so that we don't get rugged. And then we tried to up the quality with that. That's where the House of Obsidian with the AMAs and the classes and the conversation and the community. That's where that came from. Is we just said like, I think even more so than taking steps like KYC in order to improve the space, the greatest way that we can improve the space of DeFi period is to raise the overall quality of the average investor, to raise the overall knowledge of the average investor, the overall education and information that they have access to. Because if the average investor knows what they're talking about, then they're a lot less likely to get scammed. They're a lot less likely to be taken advantage of. And so everything that we're doing in Obsidian essentially came from that basis of we want high quality everywhere we go. And some of that comes from education. Some of that comes from KYC. Some of that comes from just community and doing life with people. I want to be surrounded by awesome people, and I want to be in an amazing space. And so whatever we can do to improve the space that we exist in, let's do it.
I like
Thanks
it.
for filling in the gaps.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a it's something that we really really align on is providing education to the community as a whole, making sure everybody's up to speed and understanding what they're putting their investments into. And I think that as you guys you kind of created Obsidian Council and your KYC out of frustration of being rugged, and obviously that's a huge problem in the space. And making the steps forward in the DeFi space to make it a more legitimized space where people can come and trust that they're not going to get rug pulled, they're not going to get scammed. I think that's very, very, very important for the future of DeFi as a whole. So, what are the steps that you guys initially started off with? Let's take your KYC service for example. How did that start off, and then how did that kind of like pivot to where it is now and where it is
Mm,
going in the future to be more
mm.
legitimized or more formal or professional?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really like that because you use the word pivot, which is so relevant to the conversation when it comes to our KYC program. So when we started out, like Matt said, it was in direct response to the fraud that we were seeing occur in the crypto space. And at the time, we had the Obsidian Council and the House of Obsidian already up and running. But all of us, in one way, shape, or form, were being affected by a lot of the rug pulls that were going on. So we decided to do something about it. And when we started, the initial idea was let's let's do some market research, figure out what other people are doing to understand what the current process is when it comes to KYC, and let's improve that model. And so we did that, and we came up with our system of bronze, silver, and obsidian tier, which bronze was essentially one member of the team going through our KYC process. Silver was more than one, and obsidian was the full core team. And then with that as well, I should also mention, we also, at the time when we started, we noticed that there was the classic submittal of government IDs or government documents, but at that point, there really wasn't more to existing KYC processes that we were able to find. So that's where we decided to add the recorded Zoom interview, because we saw potential gap in someone potentially uploading the documents that weren't necessarily theirs, that weren't directly related to them, and we wouldn't have known how to figure out if that was true or not otherwise. So the Zoom interview was that one-on-one interface where we could speak to them, make sure that the face on the card matches the individual on camera, and then also go over theft-related questions to sort of shake out those bad actors that potentially would have those intentions. However, it worked great until it didn't, and we realized as soon as our first rug that even though we had these tiers in place, that allowing the potential risk of other members of their team who to stay anonymous that still had the capacity to steal was a massive security risk. And when Village's finance, right, the very first time we experienced a rug occur, there were two rogue devs that had colluded and decided to run off with the funds, and the guy that had KYC'd was totally thrown under the bus. Thankfully, we ended up recovering those funds. 101% of the funds were recovered several days after that initial rug. But tying back to your question about pivoting, this is where we decided to upgrade our standards to the next level, which was identifying the two parties which actually have the capacity to steal funds, which we've been able to identify those as those that work with the smart contracts and those that are on the multi-sig, that sign on the project's multi-sig or have private keys to the project's treasury. With those specific parties, we now require everyone goes through the KYC. And one important note I'd like to mention here is just because a project KYCs does not mean that it wouldn't, theoretically speaking. There's always the chance that it could happen, but the idea is that if we have everyone's information on file, we will have the opportunity to hold those responsible for the rug accountable. And that's where we've made additional adjustments and pivots, where we are building out the crime and investigations unit, whose sole purpose is to be the other half of the KYC puzzle, which is the accountability half, right? And that's where we are actively making connections in the real world with members of the FBI. We have a member on our crime investigations unit who's been in the CIA for 20 years and will be retiring within the next several months and working with us full time to build partnerships with organizations that deal with this type of crime on a daily basis, but don't understand much about the crypto space. And so that's a big pivot and area where initially when we started this, that wasn't really something that crossed our minds at that time, but that we now realize is crucial. And as we continue to build out and experience different situations and scenarios, edge cases, we will adjust accordingly. And so I think the important part about everything that we've built so far with our KYC program and any future adjustments that we will make to it will be based off of what we believe is in the best interest of the investor in building that trust with those that take that stamp verified by Obsidian as a sign of security, because that's ultimately what we're aiming to do.
Gotcha. Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and I think that it's pretty amazing on how much of an ever changing space we are in, and taking those necessary steps to pivot is really what is going to keep communities, projects, you name it, just relevant. Because, like I said, it's an ever changing space, and if you aren't keeping up with new standards, then it's difficult to remain relevant. Just out of curiosity, where do you guys see KYC services in 1 year, 3 year, 5 years from now? Do you think they're going to still be an industry standard, or do you think that it might change into all Doxxed projects or all legitimate corporations being formed, or where do you think that's going to go?
That's a great question. I think my hope, and we've said this like jokingly, but my hope is that the constant necessity for extra step security measures isn't even really there anymore, because the space has policed itself so well that the quality has gone up. I don't know if that's like a naive hope, though. I do think that in order for doxing to become the public standard across the board, there has to be way more clarity via like governments. There's a reason that very few United States-based projects have doxed teams, because the SEC is so unclear about the regulations, so unclear about what's allowed and what isn't, so unclear about what like DAOs specifically. There's a reason that like every DAO is almost across the board either not doxed or not based in the US. Just because the SEC has made like some weird statements, and people just don't know what to do. Like there's definitely limitations to being doxed right now. There's like huge incentives. You can garner so much trust with the community when they know who you actually are. But there's legitimate downsides. There's things that you can't do when you're doxed, when the government bodies of whatever country you live in refuse to speak about like what's allowed and what isn't. And nobody wants to get screwed and get hit with fines or go to prison over something that they thought was totally legal. And so I think until that happens, KYC will be a standard. After that point, I think it's just a matter of what does the space actually need. Right now, KYC provides a huge value to the DeFi space because scams are happening all the time. Do scams keep happening after KYC is not as popular, or doxing is is more popular? Maybe. I guess the question then becomes, is anybody doing anything about scams when projects are doxed? Because we do see a lot of projects dox that aren't like legitimately doxed. There was a big project that rugged last week that I was looking at on Twitter, that their team was seemingly fully doxed. That's what they blasted all over social media. They had pictures of their faces, but there's no information on them anywhere on the internet, and nobody can find anything out after people invested because they thought it was safe because there was doxing. So maybe KYC pivots as a service across the board, not just with Obsidian, just totally speculative, but maybe it pivots at some point to be more about security, more about pursuing action when projects take advantage of investors, because that's the whole basis of it right now anyway, is protecting investors and giving trust for projects. And so maybe the like system for that shifts, what trust looks like, what protection looks like. But I don't think those two values are going away. So it's just a matter of how that transforms.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that, as you said, like the regulations are very unclear, and let's say like somebody like SimSolid, he doxes, like everybody knows who he is. The SEC, the governments, they know who he is. He's not necessarily doing something that's compliant with those regulations right now.
Right.
So he could get in serious trouble depending on the way that regulations go in the future, right? So it's a complicated topic for sure. I didn't like going into the DeFi space and understanding what audits were, what KYCs were, all the security measures in place. I was like, oh, that's pretty straightforward. And then when you really look into it, it gets really complicated really fast.
Yeah, there's just welcome to the Wild West. I mean, that's like the fun of it, is that nothing is fully developed. And it feels like every 3 months we see something genuinely new. And I'm like always on the edge of my seat waiting for somebody to create something cool. And when they do that, it's awesome. The downside is when you create something new and the governments want a piece of the cake, they're going to come up with rules retroactively. And so it's just a matter of like figuring out and waiting, well, what are the rules that I'm allowed to play by? When there aren't any rules, I'm going to play however I can. in order to win. And so I don't know. That becomes an entire mess until we see what's actually allowed and what isn't.
Gotcha. And while we're on the topic of KYCs, we got Peter. He asks, how long does a typical KYC verification take once it is started and paid for?
I would say it takes anywhere between 2 days and 4 weeks. Excuse me, 2 weeks. I apologize. 2 days to 2 weeks.
I was like, geez, that's still a pretty big gap.
I don't know where 4 came from. That was random.
So what causes the difference between a 2-day gap and a 2-week gap?
Matt, you don't ask questions here. Zach does.
I'm always the question asker.
A 2-day gap and a 2-week gap.
There you go.
Oh, Zach,
Thanks,
my boy.
So the difference is on our side when it comes to the actual KYC processing of a team, we don't move all of the team members to the next step of the process until all of the required team members finish that specific step. So everyone needs to finish step 1 before everyone can move on to step 2. And that's in order to incentivize them to do it as quick as possible, because we've learned that if we don't put the responsibility on them to move their whole team through, we end up having to pull way harder than is necessary. So really, we accommodate to the schedules of the team as they move through the steps together.
Gotcha. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And another question I had was, what is the kind of like the future outlook for you guys? I know you have this massive platform in the DeFi space to build upon now, and obviously getting to that point is most of the work. And once you're there, there's so many opportunities to pivot into different services or projects or whatever the case may be. Do you guys have kind of like a roadmap laid out or some like mental notes of where you want that to be headed?
That's a fantastic question. Where do you want it to head, Taylor? I have some thoughts, but I'll let you talk.
In terms of Obsidian as a whole, just to clarify, or specifically relating to KYC related services? Just
Obsidian as a whole.
That is a good question. It's interesting because I'm going to speak for Taylor here, and Taylor doesn't call all the shots, but this is just my opinion. I would say that when it comes to a roadmap, especially at the outset of a project, I think sometimes we like to think that we know the best direction at any given moment based off of the circumstances. And we like to say that we can forecast, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road. But the reality is because this space is so new and because there's so many changes that are constantly occurring, it's difficult even to plan out ahead 6 months at times. But so when it comes to a roadmap, do I know all of the checkpoints along the way that we want to hit? Not really. No, I'm not entirely sure because up to this point we've had to pivot substantially even to get to where we are, and it's allowed me personally to be able to be flexible enough mentally to adjust to things as they come and then react accordingly. With that being said, I personally see Obsidian as a place that has a lot of ingredients and building blocks already set that would allow Obsidian to be an incubator of sorts, or a venture capital accelerator, where we as a community, I can see us working on blowing up extremely talented teams and their visions, utilizing the existing connections that we've been able to build over this past year, and supplying them with the insight and the resources necessary to achieve whatever vision that they're proposing. And I see that as potentially a big part of Obsidian's future from a from the standpoint that I'm at right now with the tools that we have in place. That's what I would say to answer that question.
Yeah, beautiful. I'll add a little story, take you on a journey. Back before Obsidian existed, right as I sold my company in California, and Jesse and I moved outside of California onto a new adventure, I told Jesse that, like, hey man, the word of the year for me, like the word that I'm just like saying is my life word for the next couple of years is create. Like, I am tired of consumer culture. I am tired of letting life take me where it goes, wherever the wind blows. Instead, I want to be somebody that is constantly creating. That conversation led to a bunch of different ideas, and one of them ended up being like the foundation of Obsidian. And I say that all the time, like, oh, when we were sitting on Jesse's office floor, because he doesn't have chairs in there for some reason. And we were just talking about what in the world we could create. And we honed in on Obsidian. The basis of that was that we were really excited about being able to just create things. And Obsidian has quickly become a space for creating stuff. When Taylor came on board really quickly, and I don't know if we've ever even talked about publicly like how Taylor came on board, but when he came on board, as soon as we had him on as an employee, we realized, oh my gosh, like, we are way undervaluing this guy. He is so freaking talented. Let's just let him create stuff. And so we promoted and bumped him up as a core team member and said, okay, like, what should we create together? And KYC was one of the things that came out of that. And I think that's why I love being a part of this team so much, is that it is genuinely just about, like, what can we create? What can we create that makes the space better? What can we create that adds value to the lives of the people in our community? What can we create? And so as far as like roadmap, we've talked about so many different things. It's funny, before KYC ever existed, there was a day that we initially intended on like getting way more involved in the play to earn space. We were going to have like an Obsidian play to earn channel. We have like dreamed about, without spoiling things, dreamed about doing some stuff ourselves in the play to earn space. And then
Obsidian was a house in the Rome DAO.
Yep, exactly. You said the word pivot earlier, and that made me chuckle while my mic was muted, because pivot is like the word of our staff meetings. I feel like every couple of weeks, me or Jesse or Taylor is like, hey, we're going to pivot. All right, let's pivot this. Let's pivot this. And what Obsidian has kind of flowed through ebbs and flows just as it's evolved. And I think that will continue evolving. There's no way on earth that we stop at a KYC company. There's no way on earth that we stop at a Discord community. We've talked about some massive in-person things that Obsidian wants to do on a large scale. We've talked about different ways that we can create interactive things that our community can be a part of. We've talked about different companies that can kind of branch out from Obsidian. Yeah, I mean, right now, it's funny because right now we're just in this space of like, let's build up essentially a treasury so that we have the capacity to create whatever we want. Right now we're in the treasury building phase, but as soon as we hit the like explode and create phase, I think it's going to be really fun. And I think it's going to be really surprising because people will see, oh, like, you guys aren't just singly fixed on KYC, or you guys aren't even singly fixated on crypto. Like, our target is a lot larger than that. It's just a matter of building the foundation so that we can launch.
And I wanted to add that hopefully that answers Austin's question, because his question was if we think that the Obsidian Council is crypto resistant, and if crypto has a doomsday scenario, if we would stay relevant. And to that, I would answer unequivocally, yes, I believe it's crypto resistant. And the reason why I believe that is because from the beginning, we've always been a group of highly driven individuals that come from all walks of life. that were coming together to solve problems. And that was the original situation all of us found ourselves in when I had never picked Discord up before December of this last year. And I created an
Same.
account and I was like, let's solve some problems. Like, I'm just a huge fan of Jesse's vision and his journey, and related to it quite a bit. And so we have an extremely talented, diverse group of individuals in the Obsidian Council that we've started with, uh, that make their livings doing all sorts of stuff. But all of us have a shared interest in crypto. And so I am extremely confident that whatever happened with crypto, obviously I believe that crypto is the future. I have my own personal opinions about that, which is why it excites me. But worst case scenario, crypto shuts off tomorrow. Amazon Web Services, Papa Bezos is like, nope, I'm done. I'm done with hosting Ethereum or whatever. Everything shuts down. We would still have our Discord communities, and we would find more problems to solve, because that's the true spirit of entrepreneurship, and finding a need and meeting a need and doing it in a way that provides a massive amount of value to the people that are dealing with that issue. And it's been proven to me time and time again that the group of people, the community, the Obsidian Council, and the extension, the House of Obsidian, is full of those types of people. And it's a massive advantage for us. In fact, that is what I personally believe separates us from any other community in the real world. I believe we're extremely lucky to have the internet to be able to connect on this level, because I don't know how I would have been able to meet other like-minded individuals that are driven similarly and are as excited as I am about this type of stuff as well. So hopefully that was thorough enough for you.
Oh yeah, that's a lot to go off of for sure. I just had a thought while you're talking sort of about the roadmap and how it, you don't necessarily know how to think that far ahead just because the space is so ever changing, and you can't really stick to one thing and stick it out 6 months through, because things could change the next day literally, and then you'd have to rethink everything. So one thought I had was, how cool would it be if groups like Cardinal House, Obsidian Council, and I see DGen in chat from Mod Society, if groups like us hosted like a Shark Tank where we would be the heads or the sharks on the show, and then have projects come and like pitch their ideas to us, and then we'd like either say I'm out or I like it or whatever the case may be, and kind of do like a venture capitalist funding with community involvement. Just a random thought I had, but I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. There's actually, dude, who is it? Wonder if he's listening. I know they're involved in a little bit of the channels around here. Austin Clark knows who.
Brent.
Yeah, Brent.
Yep.
I wasn't sure if I should name drop people, but I know like that's kind of his vision. And I think the concept is really fun. We haven't really seen that in the DeFi space too much yet. I think everyone's waiting to see who the reigning DeFi ballers are to sit on the table, who the sharks are. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a fun idea. Just as the space evolves.
As long as it doesn't come off as taking Brent's idea, I'll be okay with it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what Brent pulls off.
Yeah, definitely. We had him on for an AMA too, and he's got some pretty cool things in the works, and I'm looking forward to, I guess, seeing how that evolves.
Yeah, we're going to get him on an AMA in, I think, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's not scheduled yet. So if you're listening, haha, there's going to be a Rebellion AMA in House of Obsidian. It's not announced, but yeah, I think it'll be cool.
Nice. Let's see. Another question I had written up was, how has the bear market affected you guys so far?
That's a great question. I think, like, first and foremost, the bear market has caused us to double down And it ties back to Austin's question that he asked earlier about whether or not we were really set up to survive if crypto died. I think that mentally we were, but we didn't have the right stuff in place to be prepared for that. And so the bear market hit. We kind of knew it was going to hit. I think we were hopeful that it would wait a little bit longer as we were building. And that is when I really realized, and when we as a team really realized that, like, okay, like we have to legitimately build something that brings tangible value. Otherwise, we cannot exist. Like, there isn't room in a bear market for just hype. There isn't room in a bear market for things that don't actually impact people's lives in a positive manner. And so, I mean, really, we went back to the drawing board and are currently still putting stuff on the drawing board for the last 2 months, just going over, like, what can we create that actually makes sense in this season. Some of the changes to KYC have been that we have, and I'll just tease it with just the name and nothing more, but we have something I'm working on behind the scenes right now called Project Grizzly Bear, specifically because of the bear market. I think for us, it's just incentivized me that, like, hey, this is a season to build. I say that all the time on the stage. Everyone jokes around that, like, oh, as soon as you mention the bear market, Matthew's going to go on a tangent about how it's a build market. But it is. Like, this is the time to build. And I think it inspired us to recognize that, like, either we build something awesome or we die. That's the beauty of the bear market. There's no room for mediocrity. And so we're building.
Yeah. We're building things that we believe are adding value. I mean, that is always the goal is this, because you can build something, right? That there's no room for mediocre products. It's all about doing things that make sense given the current circumstances. And what worked a few months ago may not necessarily be as effective. And so it's about always staying on top of that and making sure that you are actively in tune with what is desired from the DeFi space as a whole.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like that you guys are, continuously improving and coming up with new ideas, improving upon others, dropping others that might not necessarily work. And that strongly correlates to personal development and doing that on a personal level. So I guess this is much more of a personal question and is very subjective, but do you guys, what do you guys do in your free time, or do you, if at all, do anything related to personal development, like reading books, meditating, working out?
Yes, a lot. I'll shamelessly plug right there. If you want a long conversation about that, there's a dude named Certainly Jacked, or Martin. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. He's from somewhere in Europe, but he's one of our mods over in, when I say mods, I mean volunteers over in the House of Obsidian. He's got like a fitness channel. I'm not huge on fitness right now. Used to be. But we did a whole podcast episode just on taking care of yourself. But yes, I'm all about it. I think I have his journal sitting on his like high performance journal sitting on my desk right now. I listen to, well, it depends on the season. Right now I listen to a lot of podcasts. I would say last year, I think I listened to about 100 audiobooks. This year I'm way slower than that. The year's 7 months over and I've probably listened to 10. Just because I feel like I've had less time that I am working that my brain can pay attention to audiobooks. But I'm all about like the reality that if I want to be the best, I can never become apathetic. That if I want to, I don't know, like I want to create amazing things and I want to put myself in rooms that every single person in that room is better than me. But as soon as I'm in the room with the people that are better than me, I am encouraged and inspired to become better, and I want to then become the best in that room and then find a new room and surround myself with more people who are better than me and just like play life like a video game and just keep leveling up. So I love reading books. I've got so many behind me. I don't just read like finance or there aren't crypto books. I was going to say crypto books. I don't just read like business books. I read a bunch of different stuff. But I definitely pay attention more to audiobooks than regular books right now. You mentioned like meditation. Yep. I try to set aside like an hour in the morning before I do any work. And I feel like that And that's like, I used to do that a bunch, and then I stopped doing it with Obsidian because I was just grinding so hard. And I realized like, hey, like if I'm going to be the most effective I can be, I kind of have to take care of myself and set myself up for success. And so I actually have like a little Harry Potter closet under my stairs. So my office is downstairs in my house, and the little Harry Potter closet I have in there that is like, I just cleared out the closet and devoted a space to like nothing happens in here except for me being right in my mind. So that's a space that I guess you could say I meditate in there, pray in there. It's a space that I've set aside for myself to just like make sure that I'm on my A game before I go create anything.
Yeah.
I like it.
I would add that you become the $1 million man ahead of actually making the $1 million. It's an eternal process. I'm going to bring in some spiritual verbiage here, but I believe progression is an eternal thing, and that it will be something that we will always be striving for. And my personal beliefs, I'm very spiritual and always looking to improve, just as a man, right? As an individual, as a husband, as a friend, in all of those relationships outside of crypto. It's hugely important for me that I am connecting with people and adding, honestly, as much love as I can to them in their lives, because the reality is I personally believe that as an individual, that's ultimately the biggest way that I can contribute to the world, to changing the world, because oftentimes I personally feel like so much is out of my control, but if I can focus on the immediate things in my realm, like making sure that my wife knows that after 5 o'clock, I don't hop on the computer, right? Because I want to connect with her and that makes her feel loved. Or making sure that I spend time with my daughter at night before she goes to sleep so that she knows that her dad cares about her, so that she can develop and grow as a person. And in turn, because she feels that secure love for me, that she can give that to others. So I'm hugely focused on improving myself as a person, getting a little bit better every day, and I believe that directly translates into performance at work, because I'm focused on doing the same thing for others, but it would be through this medium. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, 100%. I love asking questions like that because those are like the deep personal questions that you really get to know somebody when you ask them, and they tend to have really, really good answers. And I like that you mentioned the $1 million man is the $1 million man before he makes that $1 million. And I think that cultivating a mindset and doing the discipline or building that up through mental toughness and hard work, I think that is so crucial to becoming the best person you can be, but B, also becoming that entrepreneur that is successful versus just starting out.
Yeah, I love it. There was when I was a bit younger. I'm still young. Most of us in crypto are. When I was a bit younger, I had a bunch of lofty dreams that I wanted to see happen, and I had like a crossroads in life where I could continue to work on myself, or I could go chase like one specific dream. And I got some counsel from someone in my life that I'd chosen as mentor, and he essentially told me that he just asked me a question. Actually, he didn't tell me anything. He asked me, "Do you have the character to carry the weight of your dreams if they actually happen? Like if the dreams that you are aspiring to actually come true, can your character sustain you, or will you collapse under them?" And I realized that I would absolutely collapse under it. That if I saw all of the crazy, awesome things that I wanted to take place, I would not be the person to make those things grow. That I did not have the capacity for it, that I did not have the character for it, that I did not have the integrity for it, that I didn't have, you said mental toughness, that I didn't have the mental toughness for it. I was too lazy, too apathetic, didn't have the talent or the work drive or whatever. And that was like a wake up call for me when I was like 19 years old, that like I want to actually be capable of achieving my dreams. Like I don't want to end up someday where I look at where I got so lucky that like my dreams came true and then they fall apart because I did not do the necessary work beforehand to make sure
Right.
that I was able to fulfill them.
Because honestly, it would be a disservice to you, Matt, if tomorrow you got, let's say you wanted to be president of the United States, as an
I'm going to be the
example,
president of the United States
right?
someday.
Because you're so influential politically, just a good politician. And you get that position, and then Matthew of today isn't any. Ideally, he's 1% better tomorrow, but does that mean that he's up for the job? I mean, you would be the one to really make the judgment call on that. I know if it were me, I would definitely not be prepared. But the principle, obviously, is that we prepare for achieving our dreams. And sometimes it's not ideal if we get the things that we really wish for right away because we're not ready for them.
Yeah, I love it, man. We just got so deep. We were talking about KYC. Now we're talking about freaking life. There was another, and I shared this, I think maybe in a podcast episode sometime. I said it once that I had another mentor, different mentor. Here's the key to your success. If you're listening, find yourself a mentor. Find someone that's a little further along in life than you, and you're willing to have them tell you yes and no. Because once we grow up and become adults, there's nobody that can tell us no anymore. But if you want to grow, somebody should still be telling you no when you're doing stupid things. And I was like, dude, I was single AF, and I was just desperate to find a hottie, wanted a baddie in my life, wanted a wife. And I like had some pretty high standards for like what this perfect woman would look like. And all my mentor asked me was, are you the type of guy that type of girl would be looking for? And I was like, no, nope, not at all. And I've kind of applied. And so from there, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to become that guy. And so I've kind of applied that mindset to everything I do in life, that like, am I the type of person that actually deserves that thing? And if I'm not, then what do I need to do to put in the work to become that?
Yeah, I love it. There's a lot of good conversation to be had. I'm curious, in your personal experience, how has just being able to listen and like learning the skill of just being able to listen, how has that affected you guys?
Good question. You want that, Taylor, or you want me to answer that?
I mean, the immediate thing that comes into my mind is that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And when it comes to listening, for me, I go back to my sales experience. I've done a lot of door-to-door sales. And when I started selling door-to-door, I thought it was in my mind at the time, I thought it was all about what I said. And if I could, when I would go and knock on a door and I wouldn't make the sale, the thought process in my mind went something along the lines of, oh, it's because I didn't memorize the script well enough, or I didn't say it in the way that my manager told me to say it this morning, or whatever, right? But when I started to when I really started to sell more, which was the ultimate goal, was when I spent less time thinking about the perfect response of what I was going to say to the person, to whatever concern that they had, and more time and energy thinking about the actual concern that they had while they were explaining it. Because more often than not, I would miss key clues or details that would directly assist me in resolving that concern. So for me, tying to my sales experience, selling door to door, listening has been hugely key for success there, and in my relationships outside of work, it's so important. I've found to work on that skill, and it's something that I believe is you don't master overnight. It's a muscle that you have to build, and it takes time to really get good at doing. It's a skill like anything else. That's what I would say. What about you, Matt?
Um, I'm like trying not to laugh over here because I almost interrupted you probably 3 times. Listening is a skill that I have been working on actively for the last 10 years of my life. Someone in the House of Obsidian the other day during an AMA, I saw they called me Matthew Talker instead of Matthew Walker. I am prone to talk and not listen. That is my natural disposition. So I have had to put intentional work into being somebody that listens first instead of speaks first. And I would say here's 2 reasons why that's helpful. I'm listening to a book right now called Good to Great, which is basically like a deep dive analysis of the biggest companies in America and how they transition from being like a good company to being the greatest companies ever. And one key factoid that a lot of them did is whoever the CEO was fantastic at going against the norm, where in a normal business model, the boss would step in the business meeting and he would tell all of his managers like what they need to do and he'd send them out to do it. That's like the basic structure of the general business meeting in America. But these good to great bosses, these good to great CEOs would do the opposite, where they would essentially, their business meetings were more like feedback sessions where the boss would sit down and he would just genuinely ask everyone who's putting in the work, like what legitimately needs to happen. And he would make his managers do the same thing and ask like their salespeople that are on the floor, like what actually needs to happen? What's going on? Fill me in. I want to hear from you. And that was like one of the key points that brings these companies from good to great. Is actually listening. And to me, that resonates because I am very much, and I think many young men are very much people that think at times that we know the answer, that I got to figure it out. I look back at who I was 5 years ago and I'm like, what an idiot. He had nothing figured out. And probably 5 years from now, I'm going to look back and be like, what an idiot. He had nothing figured out. And if I want to become better, if I want to become the best in the room, the way to do that is to learn. And I cannot learn if all I'm doing is speaking. Like it's quite literally impossible. So how to listen? Shut up. Find people that you value and shut up and see what they have to say. And even if you don't value them, I think this is something that I'm learning while having employees, that the people that work with me have so much to bring to the table. And if I'm willing to like not just boss employees around, but instead listen to their concerns and their ideas, they probably have better ideas than I do half the time. And so I'd rather just surround myself with people that are amazing and learn from them. And I think when you listen to people, you give them the ability to actually flourish because then they feel like they're heard and they're going to perform better at what they're doing. But 2, when I listen to somebody, I feel like I actually then could solve the issue. Like this seems like this seems like it's so obvious. They're like, hey, if you're the kind of person that walks into a room and you're like, what can I fix? Start by listening, because it's really easy to walk into a room and just like presume what needs to be fixed, presume what a customer wants, presume what your employee needs, presume what your wife or your kids or your spouse is looking for. But if you don't actually take the time to listen, how in the world are you going to ever address the real problems? And so I find that, and this is so simple, but I find that when I listen, I figure out what the real problems are and not what the perceived problems are. So I think I'm trying every day to be a better listener, and I'm doing it by surrounding myself with people that I want to hear from.
Yeah, I love it. I always like asking deep questions in AMAs, at least having something that people can take away that's not necessarily, oh, this is this aspect of project. A crypto project, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it makes us unique and really, I mean, everybody seems to be interested in these types of conversations because it's so personal and down to earth with everybody, no matter who you are. Like you can relate to most aspects of these sort of conversations. And I guess the last thing I will ask on this sort of personal development topic is, what do you guys focus on as far as open-mindedness goes, and how has that kind of benefited you guys?
You want to start, Taylor?
Yeah. I would say, I mean, that feels to me like another Captain Obvious answer. which is if you're not open-minded, what room are you giving yourself to learn anything new? And the answer to that is nothing. And the only there's no one that knows it all, right? And I think being open-minded requires an element of humility in that you recognize that you don't know it all and that someone else has talents or skills that they bring to the table with experience uh, that is hugely beneficial. But you have to be open to accepting that and to recognizing that really is of value. So I would say being open-minded has been very helpful so far with Obsidian and with the growing that we have thankfully had so far. And I think that it will only continue as we move forward.
Yeah, I think on one hand there is like an anti-open-mindedness culture where I know everything, I have my beliefs, I believe what I believe, you can't convince me otherwise. And on the other end, there's this culture of like nothing is real. I'm going to be so open-minded because nothing is real. And you pick your truth and I'll pick mine. And I would say that I lie somewhere in the middle of those two, where I believe that if what I think is true cannot be challenged by someone else's belief, then either what I believe is true is false, or I don't know it well enough to prove that it is true. And so whether I think I know anything or not, I want to be the person that is willing to listen to everyone else's perspective, because one of two things is going to happen. They're going to challenge my perspective and make me better because I'm going to find something that is more valuable than what I previously believed, or they're going to challenge my perspective and allow me to see why my belief is so valuable. Because one of two things happens, right? Like either I'm right or I'm wrong, and each way I become better. As soon as I'm not open-minded enough to listen to other people and to like hear out every idea in the room,
Right.
yeah, I think I'm just shooting myself in the foot. I'm limiting my own growth capacity.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And I don't mean to take away from talking about Obsidian Council, but I think it's fun to have these conversations.
No, it's a blast.
It's,
I didn't know what to
it's
think
great.
about. I didn't know what to expect today. So this is a fun conversation.
Yeah, neither did I. I think that the personal insight questions are super valuable because they help you see into the psyche of the brand, right? The people behind the company. So, well
Yeah,
done.
definitely. I appreciate that. But we also run a podcast that kind of focuses more so on getting to know the individuals that come on. So if you guys ever want to come on that podcast, I'd love to have you and talk more personal development and just life. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, dude, I'm down sometime. We have a podcast too, and it's not personal development, so I don't get to have those conversations as much. So I'm down anytime.
Yep, so am I.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we have not covered yet as far as Obsidian Council goes? And then for anybody in the chat, if you guys want to start asking questions, now would be a perfect time to drop them in chat.
Yeah, I've seen a few good questions in there, but then I scrolled past them as people were dropping memes. So
Yeah, I might want to repost some of those good ones.
Yeah, sorry if we missed your questions.
But yeah, is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you guys would want to make sure that we do talk about, or any alpha you want to drop? Of course, I'm always open ears for that.
just keep an eye out for Project Grizzly Bear. You don't know what it is yet, but it's coming.
Yes. And I would also say I'd like to give a couple people shout outs. Thanks for the reminder, Ozzy. Ozzy6869 has been fantastic with the crime investigations unit. Papa Big Mac has been incredible with Verified by Obsidian. Steph, I don't know if she's here or not. She's been amazing with so many things with the AMAs and working with the community. I see a lot of names here in the chat of people that I've been able to speak with directly, like Cyril and Cam and DGen and many others. Kurt, I apologize if I didn't say your name, but the reality is none of this would work if you guys in one way, shape, or form weren't invested in this just as much as we were. So we recognize your efforts, and we're extremely grateful for your time and desire to work together, because that is so much of what has been able to make this possible. And everyone that is listening live and also in the future over the recording, grateful for your time. I know that you could definitely be doing anything else with it, but the fact that you're listening to us definitely doesn't go unnoticed, and we're extremely grateful for that.
Yeah, I love it. And while we're on the topic of shout outs, Kurt, Vegan Dad, Dorelli, Austin Clark, you guys, and Cyril, you guys have been an absolute blessing to have on our team, whether moderator, consultant, or just an overall beast of a content guy. We seriously appreciate you, and your work also is very, very appreciated and does not go unnoticed. And we're so happy to have you guys with us, and you guys are seriously like very, very good and fun people to be around. And for all you guys listening in, I see Ewick, Schlim, CPL Clash, Lone Wolf, and all you other guys, like taking the time to hear what I have to say and what the other guys on the stage have to say, like that really means a lot. You're taking time out of your day, and your time is so valuable, and just taking the time to hear me, like seriously means a lot to me. So appreciate you guys.
Man, all the feels. I love it.
Yeah, shout out to my mom
Thanks, Mom, for birthing
for
me.
making me. Dude, I see some good questions in there. They're just too far up. So if you post a question, I saw Abdul had a good question. Zillare, is that how I pronounce your name? He's one of your mods. He had like 3 good questions in there. Cam Fulton had a good question. Nalaka, Ben, they're just way up in the chat under everything else. So if you had a good question you want answered, better drop it again.
See, I'm gonna try to scroll through to see if there's any good ones I can catch, but there's been so much chatter, hard to sift through everything.
Here's a trick that I figured out. Get one of your mods to copy and paste all the questions while you're focused on the stage. That's what our team does.
Bam.
Yes, that is very good. We actually do have a staff AMA questions channel, but I guess we should probably tell them to use it.
On duty.
Frickin' Brent said, I heard the Obsidian Council's hosting a revolutionary new project in this space soon. Brent, we already shilled for you when you were too busy for us not being here.
Brent's not even in the call. We should just ban him. Get that guy out of here.
Banned. Banned.
The same with Yabonks. Like, oh no, he just joined. Okay, hey Yabonks, how's it going? Well, it looks like there's not a whole lot of questions coming through, but oh, never mind. Cam just got one. The OC has 2 parts: the community and the business side. Does the community side play an important role in the growth of the business side, and vice versa? And if so, in what ways?
What do you say, Matt?
We had a staff meeting last Friday, so 3 days ago. And one of the questions we asked ourselves was, what do we think are the most important things that have like encouraged and dictated our success thus far? Community was on the top of that list, alongside a few other things. I don't think that we would exist in the capacity that we exist if it was not for the community. That's why we were so intentional about starting with community. We did not launch a business. We launched a community. It started out locked with the Obsidian Council, those original 100 members. I don't know if any of them are here right now. Besides Taylor, he was one of those original members, and then he became a core team member.
Hey.
And so it began with community, because I genuinely believe, like, my life philosophy is life is more awesome when I'm surrounded by awesome people. And so I genuinely believe that if I could get everyone amazing into one room, then we could create some cool things, not the other way around. it is true that I guess that like, and people say all the time, if you build, they'll follow. I guess it's true, but I wanted them to build with me, instead of vice versa. And so, yeah, we started with community, and we've built some amazing things, and the community has had our back the whole way along. And I think as we've created more success in the crypto space, as we've gained a little bit of influence, then our community has grown in turn. And so it's like this cyclic effect where we do something cool, the community grows. The community grows, they inspire us or encourage or even tell us to do something cool.
Right.
Some of the things that we've done are straight up suggestions from community members who are just constantly hanging out with us. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that like it is a very healthy give and take relationship. And so we were doing shout outs earlier. Shout out to my Shield team, the Shields of Obsidian. I mean, those are people that's all of our mods. We have people that write the Medium articles, that help with the podcast, that help with everything we do. And none of them are paid. Those are people that just said, hey, I've received a lot of value from Obsidian and I want to give back and make it better. And so much of what we create straight up is either inspired by them, encouraged by them, or helped by them. And so, yeah, I don't think we would exist on the level that we do at all without community.
Right. I think that's well said. I don't have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think community is the backbone of every project, especially projects in the Web3 space. And really Web3 and crypto DeFi as a whole is built around community. And the businesses that we're seeing popping up and really thriving are the ones that have the community with them. So it's really interesting.
Which is totally weird. Yeah, it's a way different dynamic than like corporate business culture that we've seen before. It's completely flipped it on its head.
Yeah, like where's the Spotify Discord? Like I just want to talk with the leaders of Spotify or with the
exactly. Right? And instead we like just hang out with CEOs all day. Like that's normal. I love it.
Exactly. It'd be so fun. But that's why Web3 is better, right?
That's why Web3 is better. It's the next evolution of everything.
Yes. Torelli asks, are the prices the same for each KYC, or does it vary depending on the project?
No, the price is static across the board. We don't change depending on how many individuals are being KYC'd or what type of project you are. And the nice thing is once you pay that fee once, the first time, at that point, any future members, because we require all multi-sig holders as well as those that have access to the smart contracts, any new members that come onto the team to participate in one of those two things I just mentioned, we KYC them at no cost. So at that point, for the projects that we work with, we become a resource to them, which ends up being a benefit in that as a part of their hiring process or vetting process, they can screen devs or multi-sig holders based off of their desire to KYC or not, which can greatly reduce the chance of experiencing any type of bad actor coming in and stealing funds while everyone's asleep during the night.
Yeah, 100%. It doesn't look like we have any more questions from the community, so I guess this is a good time to wrap it up. But this was really fun. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, joining your guys' server and talking a little bit about Cardinal House and whatever else we decide to talk about.
Lovely, let's do it. Do you guys have a Twitter? Do you have access to like the co-tweet feature yet? It's like brand new, and I think it's like better for posting out. I was gonna tweet our AMA with you tomorrow, but I think it's a better alternative than just tagging people in it. But only some accounts have it, and I have no clue why we got access. But if you have access, then I'll co-tweet you.
I would love to figure that out. I have no idea. I'm not really a huge Twitter fan, to be completely honest with you. I don't know how to utilize it that well, but
no worries. I'll send you a message.
We get it.
We'll see if you have it.
Sounds good.
Love it.
And then someone asked, Austin asked about joining the Obsidian Council server. If you're interested in joining the closed private community, the Obsidian Council, Matt has a wait list that you can sign up for, and he takes care of the details with that.
Yep. So the Obsidian, and I guess we never even said that. Uh, this is the branding thing, right? Under the
Yep.
Obsidian umbrella, we've got Verified by Obsidian, which is the KYC company. We have the Obsidian Table, which is the podcast. We have the House of Obsidian, which is the public Discord community that most of you would know about. Then we have the Obsidian Council, which is a private Discord community. There's less than 200 people in there. It is, yeah, it was the first baby of Obsidian. It came first. Chicken and egg started with Obsidian Council. And so in there we've got the Whitelist Guild. We have, it's like pretty intimate, I guess is the right word, compared to the large Discord communities, and it's done that way intentionally. There's a lot that happens in there that doesn't happen outside of it. More of like a really select community of investors. And so, yeah, if you're interested in that, you can shoot me a DM. It's private, so there's like a process to get into it. And then Austin Clark asked about the House of Obsidian. Yeah, as long as anyone can join the House of Obsidian, totally public, as long as you're not named Austin Clark. If you are, you might get banned. But other than that, you're good.
Perfect. Well, again, I appreciate you guys coming on. Again, it's been a pleasure. Like, this was really fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, dude, this was a blast. Thank you for having us.
That's cool.
Yeah, looking forward to tomorrow. And until then,
And swapping the hot seats.
Yeah. But until then, you guys have a great rest of your day. And again, to the audience, thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
beautiful day, Zach.
Take care, guys.
See ya.